Yeah, I trained as a sculptor in art school, and after that, I practiced as a sculptor actually for about 10 years till the mid 90s. And then by chance, I started working with photo performance. I was living in Bombay at the time, and one of the galleries there wanted to have a show in which that to celebrate the 100 years of Indian cinema. So they asked the Bombay artists to make a work each about Indian cinema. So I'd always liked this stunt film star of 1930s Hindi films called Fearless Nadia, who, by the way, comes from Perth. So she moved to India as a girl, and she was working in, as a child artist, and even later in the circus. There were a lot of other stunt stars, but she used to do her own stunts. So she became extremely popular. And so I just thought I'll just recreate one of her poses. She was never defined as a foreigner. But of course, she was very large and blonde and blue-eyed. So that was very funny. But so there was this particular costume, which is a Zorro-like costume with a mask. So I asked a friend of mine who's a photographer to take photographs of me in the costume. But the initial roles were so good that I decided to develop it. So finally, I developed it into a story. So in the form of a photo romance. I've always used popular forms in my work, so even in my sculpture, popular and folk and also classical references. And and my work is a lot about, is basically very feminist and about women, and it normally has female characters in the main role, played by me. So this photo romance, and when I wanted to make it into a story, I said, what kind of story could it be? A typical story in Hindi films till the 80s actually was this lost and found theme. So lost and found twins, in which one is a good twin and the other one is a good sister and a bad sister, and so on. So I said, yeah, I'll have her going to Bombay searching for a lost twin sister, separated at birth, and she's the vamp, and the bad sister, and who's with the mafia in Bombay. We shot on locations, real locations in Bombay. It's all in friends' places actually, and on the streets. And it was a turning point, I think, in my work as well as in Indian art, because nobody had done conceptual photography before. And so it created quite a stir, Since the 50s, photography has been, serious photography is supposed to be, the Magnum style of, where you use, natural light or ambient light and so on, black and white and so on and so forth. And though I used black and white, my lighting was a very expressionist sort of, noir lighting. And this whole thing of bringing in fiction, so it was always documentary photography. Many times it's a very elaborate setup. So then in many of my works, I've used painted backdrops to ground myself in a sense, to imagine the whole thing. But they're also like forms that I'm very interested in and I'm sort of drawing on and also reminding people about. And which are also very spectacular and also seductive. I like to use seduction in my work, Many of my works start off going in one direction, and then I change it once I see the material. It's very improvisatory at one point, and the way I do is I kind of do a lot of research, in the beginning. I had written a short story in 1986. It was just a page, and it was about this kind of Rakshasa or a demon kidnapping a woman. It was a kind of feminist fairy tale, So this woman is kidnapped by this demon and locked up, and then she sort of escapes, and then she escapes by making a mask, and then she goes out into the world and plays different roles, and then years later she sees this demon on the road, and then he's so shrunken and small, and then she says, my God, I was intimidated by this this small shrunken man, and so I don't then she throws away all her masks and she says, I don't have to play roles anymore. So I always wanted to make it into a work. And now I work with different photographers. Earlier it's been a different photographer for each series, it so happened. But this one is an old friend of mine. He's an American guy actually, who's been living in Bangalore for more than 20 years now. And he's not a professional photographer at all. He's got a film background and he does ad films and all that. And so he suggested the smoke machine. He said, let's use the smoke machine. So that really transformed things, So when I was looking at this, the shoot, the files, I just felt it. The whole thing was ridiculous. It didn't work at all. But what was very interesting was this: the demon, the Rakshasa, and the actual kidnapping sequence. And what had happened was I'd been again asked. There was some show which was going to be on the Indian epic, the Ramayana. So I'd started reading a lot about the Ramayana, and I suddenly got involved in it. So I said, like, why don't I develop this idea? Because one of the incidents in the Ramayana is the princess Sita gets abducted. That's a very key sort of moment in the whole epic by the Rakshasa. So then I decided to actually do these three women characters in the Ramayana who actually are very crucial to the plot. But they're not really gone into in detail, I think, in any of the versions, because there have been many versions of the Ramayana. And but they're like moments, and I'm also seeing them like archetypal moments as well as the women as archetypes. So this is the first one, and there are two more women. It's part of a project which is called The Passion. So this one is abduction, and there'll be two more, which one of them I've just shot with another character. So I actually was thinking about this whole thing of abduction, and it's a very archetypal thing in many of the world's myths. Like Greek myths, for instance, mythology, for instance, there's this rape. I mean, it's called rape, but apparently the term rape in those days also meant, basically, was abduction, the kidnapping of a woman, So this abducting of women was a part of war, and as well as it was a changing moment in many of these myths when a new world sort of was established or something, It's completely wacky, but I mean, people ask me whether, I internalize this emotion and all that. There's no time, because it all happens in my house usually, or on the streets, like illegally. I mean, it's not that, it's like a big film production unit or something. It's just 2 or 3 of us sneaking around and doing something on the streets. And so it's like I'm producing, directing, as well as acting in it. So in between, I'm shouting instructions to people, and, my friends come and act the roles. We have no time to rehearse. For example, the abduction shoot, what happened was this last shoot, not abduction, sorry, the next one, but they're all like that. Everyone was free, so I had to do it that day. And there's no way in which I could get these friends, because they're busy, to rehearse with me or set up the whole thing. Because I'd asked this boy I knew, this young artist, to paint the backdrops. So he was painting till the last minute, and I was also painting with him, to finish the night before the shoot. So it's all like this, it's crazy. So suddenly at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock you finish, then you put everything away, and the studio's a complete mess, and so one cleans up the studio completely, and then next morning, I'm up at 7 o'clock, and sometimes I also cook for the shoot, because I live in this far off suburb where there were no restaurants or anything, so I used to be up till 2 o'clock cooking and looking like a hag the next morning, but I had to play this role. So yeah, all that is the practical thing of it. So actually I'm too tense to sort of internalize anything or whatever. Of course I've thought about it, but basically, rather than acting, I find if I try to act, it looks ridiculous. And whenever I've had to choose a picture, I mean, I usually shoot a lot, and so that I have a lot to choose from, and I edit a lot. But sometimes I have to choose something which I'm not very happy with, because somehow everything else works, And that's usually why I'm not happy, is that I've tried to make an expression. So I've widened my eyes or waggled my eyebrows or something, made a funny thing with my lips. And normally in most of them, I don't have any expression. I tell the other people also not to have an expression, but to just turn, to the left or right or straight, or look here, look there. And it's the whole mise-en-scène actually that works. So it's the posture of the body, the whole, that has been worked out very elaborately. Like the sets, the objects in the thing, and the way we shoot, and the lighting and the angles and all that actually make the whole emotion, And in classical Indian performance theory, it's called rasa or essence, or juice. So that's what I like to use, the essence of that juice, that juicy thing, about it. Yeah, I do consider myself a very political artist. But at one point, I decided, in fact, my sculpture was getting very directly political, and I decided not to actually handle something in that direct way. Because sometimes I find it very irritating when artists respond to some incident immediately, well, okay, like, Egypt protests or something, you do a work. So Iran war, you do a work. Something happens in India, you do a work. I prefer to mull over it, and it's like an underlying thing in my work. One of the ongoing politics is, of course, the feminist politics, which is going on, with image, with narratives, with so many, with histories, with memory, so many things. It's like Sita is supposed to be a kind of passive character. But when I read the original Ramayana in translation, I just found it so passionate, which is why I call it the passion. Which people don't associate with it. It's like almost like Greek drama, like, these characters are larger than life, spectacular, the spectacular narrative, and it's full of they're full of contradictions and human passions, and it is a wonderful story. I've done this photo romance called The Anguished Heart, and that in that I play this sister and who falls in love with a man, and she's living with her invalid mother and a younger sister in this kind of ruined mansion. And again, in the opening of this exhibition where I showed this work, this young art student came up to me and said, "Why is that sister there?" Very threateningly, menacingly, he said, "Why is that sister there in that series?" So I said, "Actually, I just wanted another character over there, just to carry messages and just hang around, like, and she's usually called a Sakhi, like the friend in Indian literature and all that. The heroine will have a Sakhi, like a friend who she sends, by whom she sends messages to the lover, and so on and so forth. So that was my idea, So he kept coming back to me very irritably and saying, "Why is that sister there?" So finally he said, "You know what? My father has married 2 sisters." So that's why I asked. So he'd sort of eroticized that figure, and then I started looking at that figure again, and I said, yeah, maybe, like, she is the one. Like, how would the mother know? What happens is, I mean, it's all untold. There's just 10 scenes, but you can, put 2 and 2 together in a sense and make your own story. So there's this kind of, love blossoming and all that with this man. And there's this, the mother finds out, and then she banishes this man and all that sort of thing, and so on. So it just ends inconclusively. So I said, yes, this sister must be going, and she must be jealous. Maybe she's in love with the man herself, and maybe she goes and tells she's telling the mother about this whole thing. How would the mother know? I mean, she can't climb up to the terrace and see them meeting and so on. And so it was very interesting, So the whole thing got transformed for me.